Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of the Simple Pin podcast. If you are listening in the podcast app, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe so that you get the latest podcasts. And if you're on YouTube, hello, welcome. And you need to also subscribe as well so you can get not only our latest podcast, but also our educational videos here on YouTube. Today, I have something a little bit different. I recorded an episode with my friend Jillian Leslie on her podcast, and it went about an hour, and we ended up talking about this whole idea of the blogger shift in 2024, where we think we're going to go in 25, the elements of a sound Pinterest marketing strategy, and some things I see people missing, maybe even some mistakes that people are making. And at first we were going to swap, right? I was going to go on her podcast. She was going to come on mine. And then after we got done recording, I said to her, can I just put this on our podcast feed? Because it was so good and such an honest conversation, as well as some really great Pinterest tips that I shared throughout the conversation on her podcast. She's like, absolutely. So we are launching this podcast both on the same day, on her podcast and here on Simple Pin podcast. So we want you to be able to go follow her. I'll put all the links below in the description, as well as if you are coming over here from listening to that podcast, hello, you probably don't need to listen to the rest. But I hope this just really inspires you and helps you get a sneak peek behind what I'm thinking for 2025. I feel like it's a little bit different than what you would have gotten had I been an interviewer, whereas I was being interviewed. So I was a little more raw, a little more honest, not like I don't do that here on the Simple Pin podcast, but it was just a little bit different. So I hope that you'll enjoy this episode and that you will get some ideas from it that will help you really think about what Pinterest marketing is going to look like for you in 2025, what your business is going to look like. And I hope you get some great takeaways. Alrighty, let's dive into the episode with Jillian Leslie on her podcast. And thanks so much for listening to the Simple Pin podcast.
Kate, welcome back to the Blogger Genius podcast.
Thank you so much for having me back.
So we have been friends for a long time, and it's always fun to reconnect, to catch up both personally and also in this crazy online space. So
yes, 100%.
So you are a Pinterest expert. We'll get into that. But I want to pick your brain on Pinterest, digital marketing, blogging, and online entrepreneurship. But before we launch into this, will you just briefly share who you are? I know most people will know you, but just what you do and kind of what part of this digital space are you an expert in?
Yes. So I run a company called Simple Pin Media. We are an agency first and foremost, but we also have a podcast. We have an education arm. So we have several digital products all surrounding Pinterest. So we only delve into the world of Pinterest. We've been doing it now for 11 years. And our goal is to really take what's happening on Pinterest and figure out a way to formulate a really good strategy for people who have decided to use it. So some of our education revolves around this whole idea of, do you even want to use it? And most of our clients that come to us, they've already made the decision. They're ready to outsource. But people that we interact either on YouTube or Instagram or even within our podcasting space will come to us and say, I don't even know why I need Pinterest. And a lot of it revolves around not knowing how to frame it up in their marketing and how it fits.
So my question for you, and every time I feel like I ask this, is Pinterest still a visual search engine?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Is Pinterest still a good way to drive traffic?
Yes, it's still one of the top traffic drivers out there amongst all the quote unquote social media platforms.
Is it still a good way to drive organic traffic, or is it a pay to play platform?
Still good for organic traffic, but don't let that scare you away from paid ads. I think they're really leaning into some great integrations with paid ads that you can definitely leverage to sell more of your products or get email leads.
Interesting. Okay. So let's talk about, if we can, take a step back. This year, we were talking about this, has been kind of a wild ride for bloggers and online entrepreneurs. From where you're sitting, what have you seen over this year?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of changes when it comes to ad revenue. Number one, I interviewed someone on my podcast just recently, and in September of 23, she was really hit by both the Google update, which then affected her ad revenue. So she was making somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 a month. Wow. And slowly that decreased to January of 24, February 24 being right around $800 a month. It was just crushing, right? So you had these impacts of all these people who were creators who were making so much money off of ad income, which was easy money. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, when there is an easy button, I'm going to push it. And this was an easy one that had given people ad income for years. So with that change, really came this kind of examination of what is the current business model for creators. And Pinterest is a part of that too. And Pinterest traffic has decreased as well. Not for everybody, but I would say overall what we've seen in the last, 18 months to 2 years, it's kind of like somebody put a blanket over the traffic that's going to all websites, that's coming from Google, that's coming from anywhere. And we're kind of asking, like, what's this blanket we're under and how do we get out from underneath it? Or how do we function under the blanket now? Because maybe that blanket is never going to be removed.
That's an interesting way. I've seen the same thing. I talk to tons of creators and bloggers. I think it has been a year of shock for a lot of people. Now, one thing, I was talking to Megan Porta, who was talking about food bloggers, but she said there are bloggers out there that have not necessarily been hit so hard, but who don't necessarily want to talk about the fact that they're doing okay. So it's not like everybody has been squashed. You asked, so Catch My Party, which is our first blog, you said, how are we doing? In reality, we get a lot of traffic from Pinterest. And I said, we haven't been hit that hard. And I chalk it up to the fact that we've been on Pinterest for a very long time. We have close to 2 million Pinterest followers. We are trusted. So Pinterest has not tightened the spigot as much for us. But I think if I had to grow that today, it would be a lot harder.
Yeah. And I would agree with you is that when we kind of survey the landscape of creators, the ones who have been established on Pinterest, you're right, they were not hit as hard. In fact, somebody said to me, I haven't grown, I've remained flat. And I'm okay with that. I consider that a win.
Absolutely.
And I think that is definitely out there. And she was kind of in the same boat as you. She had 4 million followers. She had been on Pinterest since the beginning. And that really was able to carry her. Whereas people who started in 2018, 19, even 2020, they had a different experience of getting this huge boost in 2020 when everybody was staying home and Pinterest users doubled.
I remember that.
Yeah, to where 2020, a lot of those users stopped using the platform as much as they were before because the world opened up again. So I think that's important to take into consideration. And then from there, we go into the series of ChatGPT and Gemini on Google. And, there's just all these things that tend to cascade and add on kind of insult to injury for those who are decreasing. So I think it's important to just kind of, like I said, survey the whole scene and know it's not everybody, but kind of ask yourself, okay, it might not be me. If it was me, what are the things that I would do differently to maintain a steady foundation for the growth that I have?
I think you're right. Like, we all got drunk on traffic and ads. And even though we knew there's going to be a tomorrow and you're going to probably wake up with a really bad headache, the party was so good that we didn't want to leave. And we didn't want to prepare for the day after, because even though we knew, we didn't really know. And we thought maybe this is just the way even though you and I have been at this for a long time. And I think the longer you've been in the game, the more you've seen these ups and downs and ups and downs. But this was a really good up. So a lot of people came in and were really psyched about this. And in truth, they didn't have to think about their blogs as businesses. They were by default businesses, but it was much more like, here's what I do. I kind of figure out how to kind of game Google, and I get really good at keyword research, and I structure blog posts like this, and I create my pins like this, and the money is going to start, and I'm going to be patient. I'm going to keep at it for maybe 2 years, and then all of a sudden I'm going to hit pay dirt. And I don't have to think about how else to monetize. How to think about my business as something that solves problems for people, or that has a real purpose, or that I am now the face of my business. And I think that we all kind of got Like we're waking up the next day going, what was that?
Yes, the hangover, right? And I think in that too, as you were talking through all these things and all these changes that have happened, I think what's important to realize is that there is a splinter effect, right? To where, okay, if this person's not making money, then they can't afford to use this tech tool, or they can't afford to hire this person, or they can't afford to use this virtual assistant. And then they cut that, and then those people cut things. And so you see this economic downline that really hits the online community really hard, to where I've seen more people in the last 6 months just say, I'm out. Like, I can't do it anymore. And I completely understand. I've had many moments in the last 2 years where I'm like, is this it for me? Am I done? And I think when you get to that point, you have to ask yourself, okay, I look at I drive through the neighborhood and I look at all small businesses, and I think there's somebody who is a nail salon. There's somebody who is a small food business, right? Like, you live in Austin, I live in Portland. I kind of wonder every day, how do these small food businesses stay afloat with all this competition, right? But everybody's asking themselves the question, do I feel strongly enough about the product that I have and who I'm serving in order to put the effort into getting in front of more people to stay in the game? And I think that's the question you have to be faced with at the end of the day is, am I going to stay in the game even when it's hard?
Yes. And in fact, it's funny. I've been doing podcast episodes with experts like you. And some people will say, in a weird way, we're kind of resetting. Using Catch My Party as an example, we did well. We do well on Pinterest because we were one of those early movers. And now it's like that becomes less of a superpower, and everybody now is kind of starting over. And the playbooks, you mentioned this before we pressed record, those playbooks that everybody followed, whether they worked or not, but it was that sense of I've cracked the code. Right now, if somebody says they've cracked the code, please don't believe them. And now it's all about experimenting, testing, putting out good content, being helpful, thinking about your business in a very specific way so that you can build a community of people, like-minded people, and then potentially sell products and services to them, maybe work with brands, but it's a different point of view. And so that is but that there is this potential. And I think the people who can see this, it's a hard time. We have to be real about that, but there's an opportunity there.
And I would say too, you said something that really jogged this idea for me. So I joined a business organization, entrepreneurs organization in April of 21. It was a huge leap for me. I had no idea what it was. It's actually global. People can look it up. It's just called EO. But they have these chapters here in Portland, and then you join this small forum. And one of the things, the tenets is you can't give advice. You can only give experience shares, which means you can share what has gone on with your experience, but you are not allowed to say, you should do this. Have you thought about this? Have you considered? These are phrases you are not allowed to say. And going into it, I thought, oh, that's a lot of gatekeeping and really strict. I found it to be one of the most freeing things because I realized that one of the most powerful places that you can learn is through experience shares, which gets to the point of, I don't want someone to come to me and say they have a proven method to navigate the downturn of 2024. What I want to hear from somebody is what's working for you. What is it that you are trying right now? And I think when it comes to something like Pinterest, there's definitely these foundational elements. There's 3 to 4 of them. And then there's experience shares of what's working and not working. And what I find is we tend to want to go straight for the experience shares before we've mastered something that's foundational. It would be the same as if I was saying, I want to go straight to somebody telling me how to market my Shopify store, but I haven't really built a really good shop listing. I haven't really built good taglines for my marketing. I've done all of that, but I go to somebody and say, well, how do you market your Shopify store? I'm putting the cart before the horse. But all that to say, those are the things that we should be doing right now, is going to other people and saying, and I will say the caveat is, if you have established your foundations, if you're okay, I know what I'm doing, but I want to know from you, what's working and what's not working. Just tell me your story. And then as you tell me your story, all of a sudden these things are going to pop alive in me. And I go, oh, yes, I could try that. Okay. Yes, like keep talking. This is giving me ideas. That's definitely not an advocate to join like every mastermind you can, but find your trusted group of people. Or when you go to conferences, talk to people in the margins, like really seek out that information for where people can share their experience. And don't take it as gospel. Just take it as like it's their experience and what's worked for them. There's a nugget in there that will work for you.
So tell me, what are these foundational things? And then let's talk about where you're seeing people have success. Not necessarily that that's the answer, but how should people start to be thinking about their business?
Yeah. So in relation to Pinterest, right?
Yes.
Or just
Pinterest.
Okay. So I would say number one is going to be knowing why you're using the platform. Even if you've been using the platform for a long time, it's always good right now to go back and say, okay, are we still going to use it? Why are we going to use it? And what are we hoping to get in return from it?
So this is things like traffic, sales, email signups.
Exactly. Those are the top three. So going in there and saying, okay, why am I using it? And if you're really struggling with this, it's also a good exercise to jot down on a piece of paper why you're using everything. If you've never stopped and taken stock to say, okay, I'm using Instagram for this reason, I'm using this over here. It's like, I just recently made the decision to really only use stories on Instagram because it wasn't doing anything for me. And we evaluated all the time that we were spending and we looked at our data and we said, YouTube, Pinterest, Google, those are our top three driving traffic. And we want traffic. Those are really, really important metrics to us. Not like Instagram can't do that. And I get that it can build awareness. It can do all those things, but our people just aren't always there. They are a little bit more on Facebook because there's a lot of like business groups on Facebook, right? Like they're already operating there, but you have to figure it out. Okay, why am I using this, right? That's kind of reset number one, take you 20 minutes maybe. Then number two is going to be, okay, does your profile reflect who you are and what you do? Have you cleaned it up? Have you looked through and just kind of given it a refresh? We all know that keywords are the number one thing that makes the algorithm work. It's how they serve the end user, following their interests, their searches, the things that they want to go deep on. And so if they have keywords in all the places that you need them, board names, board descriptions, pin title, pin descriptions, then the algorithm gets to serve up the exact content. And a lot of people, me included sometimes, I can brush past this. I'm like, oh, well, I think people are using Pinterest marketing. I think blah, 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 blah. A couple months ago, we looked through and we were like, man, our views are really tanking. Like, why? Is some of these keywords not keywords that people are searching? So we kind of did a deep dive. But remember, I'm business to business. So my target is way harder than somebody like you, Catch My Party, which is business to consumer, right? Like, there's there's so many more options. But it's good to get a refresh on like, am I using keywords that I think are working? Or am I using keywords that people on Pinterest are actually using, which you can definitely use the trends tool. And that's what I'm going to talk about, like, what's working.
Okay, so how did you, when you said, ooh, maybe these aren't the right keywords, how did you find better keywords?
So we started with doing searches of the keywords that we were using. And we thought we were ranking for them, but we started looking at who was ranking for them and what were the keywords that they were using just by picking up the phone and looking at the search bar on Pinterest. When you search something, those search results, who's at the top, that doesn't change based on like you or I could do the same search and see the same results, right? So I wanted to see like who was ranking up high, what words were they using? And what we found was that there was a few different phrases that we had not incorporated. I can't remember what they were at this time, but like we kind of noticed these were popping up in the description and we noticed that they were also on the pin copy on the pin. So I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Like maybe we need to change up the names of our boards. Maybe they're like a little bit old. So we did like a keyword refresh on our boards. And then we started using some new keywords just to kind of see if we could jog some of that loose. The other thing I would say, which this is a lot easier business to consumer, is the trends tool. So just recently, one of our clients, and this is kind of an experience of what's working right now, went into the trends tool and looked at the trending topics that were coming up on Pinterest. And she picked one. She created a blog post out of it. And she pinned it in August. Since then, it's had 23,000 saves and it climbed to her number 3 pin because she's very targeted as to what's trending on Pinterest right now. And so when we see these like trends reports, or sometimes in my weekly email, I will list Pinterest trending topics. Pinterest releases these every so often. If you grab those and you see like, oh, like a Minnie Mouse party for 4-year-olds, is increasing by 1,000%, why wouldn't you create something that's going to get you in the searches, right? And so that's what she did, was she saw that these things were trending and they were increasing. And if Pinterest is saying this is a priority, we know that the algorithm is somehow putting priority on these particular keywords. So here's the thing that I would say. Check that once a month, especially when you're trying to do some of your content calendar stuff. This is whether you're in the product space or whether you're in the content creation space. Look at what Pinterest is telling you that people are already searching. Use those terms, especially if back at step 1, you said, this is a really important platform for me to be on for XYZ. Okay, now you can put that into action by using these particular keywords that are right there.
Okay, sorry.
And so no, it's okay. I'll do the third one and you ask me all the questions. Is the images. So this is also where you can put pin copy. I just talked about that. You can do you can use that keyword, put it on the pin image, and then you can do a few different images. But man, I think people overlook this. I know not everybody does this, but it's something we've kind of seen come up lately where you do all this groundwork creating a blog post and you get to this Pinterest image and you're like, this image looks good, this looks good, let's go. But I think there's a lot of data that you can get from looking at images and how they have converted, like what's working, what's not working. Are there ones that have ingredients or no ingredients? Is it a standalone picture of your product or is it more lifestyle? So I think there's just a lot of research that you can do. Doesn't take a lot of time.
And by the way, this is your research of your own pins, not like what pins are showing up first. Let's say, I don't know, I make earrings.
Yes.
I create earrings. Should I be looking at other people's earrings and what's showing up first? Should I be looking at my pins? Oh, I've got them on people. Oh, they're just there in a flat lay. Like where would you, what would you prioritize?
Both, actually. So I definitely look at your data because your data is going to tell the story of what people are clicking on. But then I would actually go look to see, okay, what is actually populating in the search feed? Like I did for keywords, you can do that for images as well. Some people ask the question, and I don't really have a hard and fast answer just yet, but people ask the question, should I make my pin look similar to the ones that are in the feed? Or should I make them look different? And I think the number one thing that you need to look for is how to stand out a little bit, but look similar, right? Like if they all have pin copy of Pinterest marketing for bloggers, then I should put pin copy, Pinterest marketing for bloggers. But if some are pink and mine's red, my brand colors and brand awareness is red. I'm not going to choose pink to forsake that. So I think it's important to stick to your branding because that is another way to build brand awareness on Pinterest is through your images.
Oh, okay. So back to the 3. Go look at your account. Freshen up your account. Go look at what is working in your space, like looking at your competitors and using trends if you're not B2B, but B2C, and look at your data, not just this looks good.
Yes, exactly. It's so easy for us to do. It's so easy for me to do, especially as we get so busy. We're like, that looks good. Let's go with that.
Absolutely. It is shocking just because some of our most successful pins I cringe at and go, oh, whereas the ones that I think are going to knock it out of the park don't necessarily knock it out of the park. And by the way, when I am talking about digital products, I have this exact same conversation with people. You have a hunch of what your people want to purchase from you. And you would know better than I would about your audience and their needs. However, you only know if it's going to be a success if you put it in front of people. And so this is where there's the reason one of our tenets with Milo Tree is we make it so easy to set up digital products so you can get going and test them and figure it out. One of the big things that I see on my end is people taking so long to create a product, to make it perfect. People say this to me all the time. Oh, I tried selling a digital, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. And I go, okay, like I promise you are not special in that like it kind of like that thing of like Pinterest hates me. It loves everybody else.
Right.
Like digital products hate me. No, they don't. It's just that you haven't experimented enough. You need like at bats. It's like dating. You know, if you just like go, oh, I went on one date. This is like my future husband or my future wife. Like probably not. you got to figure it out and you got to test a lot of things. If I were to have my thing of like where I'm seeing people have success, it's the ones who are putting out stuff and seeing where they can get traction.
Yeah. And I think it's really easy to hide behind that a little bit. And actually, as you're talking, I was thinking we were joking about this kind of marketing error in the past. And I think as small business owners, the amount of risk in creating a digital product is really just our time, right? And it's a little bit of our pride, like if nobody buys. So we were joking about these, big companies. In fact, I'm sure you remember this, but remember when Pepsi tried to launch Pepsi Clear?
Yes.
And it was this huge disaster. And like they launched it at the Super Bowl. And it was like the guy who was talking about how he was reflecting back on his marketing mistake. And he said, at the time, we just thought it was going to be this most amazing thing. And we launched it at the Super Bowl. And it was the hugest flop ever. If you are worried about your digital product flopping, you are okay. There is a very small audience of people who are going to see that compared to the Super Bowl. And so keep trying new things. Nobody's going to know.
And it's so funny. I was talking to somebody and she was asking me like how to treat her email list. Like, should you treat it with kid gloves? For example, like, do you need to like pre-test your product? Like send it to just a couple people and see if they purchase because God forbid you flood it to your list. And then, you embarrass yourself. And I said, nobody's going to remember. Like, how many emails do you get from like a brand or a person? And if they're offering something that doesn't connect with you, like, I will think about this for less than 2 seconds. Like, you've not blown your brand to me, and so therefore it's like, and if in fact, let's say you sell me a product and it doesn't solve my problem, okay, like maybe it's really bad and I won't buy from you again. But maybe what you do is reach out if you're selling stuff and go, what did you like? What didn't you like? What can I improve on? And if somebody is, amenable, like, and by the way, this is what I always say now, buy them a Starbucks to talk to you, to go do stuff to get that feedback rather than, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. Oh my God, nobody purchased or somebody purchased and returned it, whatever it is. I promise you, nobody's really thinking that much about you. You don't need to pre-test.
Yeah, it's true. And I don't know if this will encourage any of the listeners, but I have created a Pinterest course and I have shut it down. I have done a membership. I have shut it down. I've done an ads membership. I've shut it down. I've done multiple small products that I've turned off and are turned on and then turned off. And there's been many times where I've thought, are people going to distrust my teaching or what I release? And I had to let that go because ultimately when I close something, it's because I feel like I can't give enough. It's because I'm not able to have the bandwidth to continue to refine it and make it better and better and better. And I would rather lean into that in a smaller product or something different than something like a membership, which has been really great, but when the season is done, or I've known when the course season is done. And sure, somebody out there could be like, I'm really frustrated that she closed this membership, XYZ. I can't do anything about that, but I can do is continue to be a better teacher and continue to be a better support of the people who are going to buy future products. So you take and you learn from this and you say, okay, well, that didn't go so well. So I'm going to lean into this future one and I'm going to make sure this is there because people's learning styles are also different. I could never release the course that I did in 2016 now because we have TikTok.
I was just going to say this. I was just going to say, I think, it's so funny because at that time, everybody needed a course. Everybody was working on a course. So with Milo Chi, in the beginning, when we first launched it, people would email me and be like, when is your course platform going to be ready? I will tell you, in the last year, I've gotten virtually none of those emails. So our course platform has been pushed down our list. And I'm going to argue whether this is right or wrong, that because of TikTok, like I think I can watch 4 TikToks and completely understand and master email marketing. Therefore, I don't need now, I'm not saying that's true, but in our heads now, because our attention spans are so short, because we think we're good at absorbing knowledge, I just go to TikTok and boom, somehow now I'm an email marketing expert. Where, though, I have seen an explosion of growth is, I'd say I'm an email marketing expert Now I create a group of people who might be interested in email marketing, and we're going to show up together live, which again, as the membership host, that might be something I might be too much work, or I might not want to do that, but that where all of a sudden, and by the way, it's not just then about me, it's about this community of people learning together, sharing best practices. But the idea of I'm going to create 10 videos, put them together as a course. One, I think people make you go, oh, those videos better be great, and I need to hire an editor and perfect it before I launch it. And also, it's lonely going through a course by yourself.
And most people don't complete it. That's actually, I'm glad you brought this up, because that's what we ended up going to, was this group called the Inner Circle, which is a 6 to 7 weeks of moving people in real time through the whole process of setting up their own Pinterest strategy, to where at the end, you can either hand it off to a team member, or you know how to ebb and flow with it and adjust it. But there is no pre-recorded content. You're going to show up with my team, who has been experts for years. We're going to walk you succinctly through this process 1 to 9, the same thing we do with our clients, but we are holding you accountable to finish it. And the thing that I've learned, which I find so fascinating about these groups, there's usually 2 to 3 people that sign up, and we get to week 5 and they're panicking. They're like, I didn't complete it. And I think that comes from the old course model of you can buy, let it sit in your inbox, and you don't have to do it because there's no accountability to do it. Whereas I want to change that. I want to say, if you really want to learn how to do Pinterest marketing, if you're willing to get in there 2 to 4 hours a week, I'm going to help you do that. And I'm going to do it in 6 weeks. I'm not going to stretch this out. And we're going to make sure that you have all the information that you need to never have to buy any full comprehensive course again, because you got it all. And then we support them through an alumni group, but we're on our 3rd cohort is just ending. And I will tell you, the transformation in learning has been so much greater than membership or course combined. Like, it's capped 15 to 20 people, but it's very structured in the way that, like, okay, you can answer questions. We're going to walk you through every step, but we want you to do it because we don't want you to be stuck.
Absolutely. So by the way, this is the model. This is what you just talked about is the model I'm seeing people have tremendous success with. Mm-hmm. Because also, by the way, you might get a cohort of people and they all might be, personal trainers. And all of a sudden then what you taught in your last cohort might not be as relevant because the personal trainers all have a specific thing they need. They need clients. Whereas previously it might have been food bloggers. So therefore you could go, hey, you personal trainer, I see you. And how about this? And there's something very powerful. And in this world of AI, I believe that being a person and showing up becomes so valuable. Whereas I can get all the information I want now through ChatGPT. I was sharing a story with you where I was doing a simple search and like my little AI in Google didn't give me the answer right away and wanted me to click on somebody's link. And I was like, what? Just tell me the answer. And then I thought that's bad for all these businesses and all these websites that want my traffic, and I don't want to give it to them anymore. Therefore, that kind of information, it was something basic, like how many Tylenol to take, something like that. That now isn't what I'm fine with AI giving me that answer.
Yes.
What I want though, like for example, you've made my day today. Okay, just hanging out with you, talking business, seeing your smile. Like this is valuable to me.
Yeah, human to human.
So I feel like and that you are showing up live. Maybe, I don't know, maybe your kitchen's messy, maybe like whatever it is, like I'm going to go, wow, that's so human rather than it's a perfect video in a perfect course. And I'm never going to get past lesson 3.
Yes, 100%. And I think what I learned back to the EO piece was I learned that human aspect of it and that's what I feel like I've taken into future things that we create is how can we share really truly where we're at, what we've learned. I did a recent thing with our newsletter. I've been doing our newsletter for years. And I asked the question, what do you want this to be? Because I could approach it as I'm knee deep in Pinterest all day, every day, right? Like I don't always know the pain points. And so my quest has been, what are your pain points? And we do that through asking people or town halls or things like that. And somebody came back and they said, I want to know what's working for your clients. And it was that exact thing. It was an experience share. It was, please tell me what you're seeing, not because I want this like magic answer from you, but because I just want to hear about it. And so we added that section to our newsletter, what's working for our clients. And not every week do we have something earth shattering, but we can at least come back and say, well, our team is working through this, or our team is trying this, whether it's ads or organic. And that is what I think will win going forward. And before we recorded, you said this too as well, like people are liking these smaller, more intimate kind of communities of people and that creates like your ultimate fan. You know, I think Seth Godin has that theory, but I think that's when you get closest to people and you could really hear the words that they're using and the things that they're struggling with. And that's what for me surfaced, I think it was through a town hall. I realized people were asking the wrong question about Pinterest. I would get these questions over and over about like, what's a fresh pin? How many times can I pin a URL? How many times can I pin per day? Can I repin it to the same board? And I went, those are questions that are really great to ask after you've mastered the foundations. And if you haven't mastered the foundations, then you're asking the wrong question. Your question should go back to, do I know the keywords that I'm targeting per quarter, per year to get in front of my person? Have I spent 15 to 20 minutes in Canva, really updating my Pinterest image, really being intentional about it? If you haven't done these things, for you to jump to how many times do I pin per day is putting it in the wrong order. And I would have never realized that had I done a few town halls over and over again and went, hey, wait a minute. Like I will answer this for you, but it actually won't be helpful to you because you haven't done these other things first.
That's so interesting. Okay, but can I do a lightning round with you on these specific tactics that you are seeing succeed? For example, one thing that I always hear, tell me if this is true, consistency. Is that still a thing?
100%.
What does that mean?
It means that you need to be actively pinning to the platform daily. Now, this doesn't daily. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that you have to pin 10 pins a day. If you're a new business owner and you can sustain 1 or 2 pins per day, or you can touch base with the platform each day, absolutely do it. If you have to share other people or now, we don't use repin. I almost use that. But just save other people's pins to your board. That's fine too. That's not a strategy I recommend if you have a lot of content, but I like this consistency, kind of touching base, and also use your phone. Go in and see what the platform's looking like. And I think that element of consistency is like this background thing where you get to see what you like and what you don't like.
Good. Okay. What on Pinterest then is working? Like for us, it's static pins.
Yep. I would agree with you on that right now. So Pinterest has moved to just 3 formats. We have video pin, we have a product pin, and we have a standard pin. I will say for those people who have we were talking about it yesterday as a team, you will still see idea pins as an option in your phone or in your desktop. I don't know why they haven't gotten rid of that. It's really frustrating. I haven't had it for over 2 years, pretty much like a year, 18 months or so. I've only had create a pin, create a collage, create a board. So when you go to create a pin, you can only do really the 2 formats of video and standard image. I will agree. Its standard images are killing it. But can I tell you this? Speaking of Megan Porta, we were at her conference in Denver and it was amazing. And it was so great to be in this room with 50 food creators. And somebody said, videos are doing so well for me. And somebody at this table over here said, videos are tanking for me. And it was like, they were both food, right? And so that being said, you're going to have to go into your data. But I would say for most of our clients right now, we would not be video forward. We would be video in the background, standard image forward.
Okay. Does Pinterest work as well for content creators as it does for people selling products?
Yeah, both. I would say content creators, I would say have the leg up, right? Because people on Pinterest are searching for, let's even take your search on Google. People on Pinterest are still searching for articles that help them get a solution. And they are willing to click on an image to go to a website. And if that website does not have what they want, they bounce away really fast. and they can qualify it really quickly. Whether it's travel to fashion to food, content is king on Pinterest. And what we find is that even for product sellers, you have to have content to warm people up to your product, to share your testimonials, to share your before and afters, to really talk about the features of your digital or physical product. So I would say content is king on Pinterest. Like you absolutely have to have it.
Okay, I've got content and I've got a URL. How many pins am I going to create for that URL? And does each pin have to be a different use case for that URL? And what I mean by that is I've got the earrings, let's say, but I've got like a blog post about earrings. Is it, hey, these would be a great, maybe like bridal shower gift, or I don't know if you give earrings for a bride, but these would be a great 30th birthday gift. These would be, these look great in your fall, with your fall outfits. These are less expensive than the more, that like you wouldn't believe the price of this, or these have been seen on this celebrity. Like what? Tell me about that strategy. For one URL, what should I do?
Yeah, for an image strategy, I'm going to say if you are fairly new to Pinterest, one image, go for it. You're going to do that for like 3 to 6 months just to learn what's happening. Then you can add a second image in. And if you're doing something like earrings, you can be like how to style gold earrings with a black outfit, what type of gold earrings to wear to a wedding or something along those lines. You can definitely get creative. In fact, a common thing that we'll tell our food creators is, let's say your sourdough bread recipe hit big in 2020 and it did really well. How do you want to maximize that in the future for an existing piece of content, right? Well, you can say, bake the sourdough bread for Thanksgiving, the best sourdough bread for a Thanksgiving side dish, bringing bread to a family who's just had a baby. There's a lot of different ways that you can do it, but start with this one. And then if you are more advanced, so let's say you're not dealing with an evergreen, this is like brand new, you can play up with different pin copy. I like that the most, to say like, okay, how are we going to target for how to style gold earrings with an outfit versus gift giving? And that could be variable upon the time of year. So gift giving of earrings right now, or gift giving, say, before like Mother's Day or graduation, is going to be different. Whereas in the summer, it might be styling because people are going to different parties or they're going to weddings. So it's really up to you and the bandwidth that you have to do investigative work to figure out how these images are performing. If you don't have that, nor do you have the desire to do it, one image is plenty.
How about old URLs versus new URLs? Meaning, I posted this recipe in 2020, or I posted this recipe right now in October of 2024.
And the question would be, which one was going to do better, the old or the new?
Right. Like, let's say, though, I'm going to make a new pin for my old post, a new pin for my new post.
Like, same topic?
Let's say, no, different. Let's say they're two different recipes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. Two different recipes. Is it kind of like which one's going to do better? Like, is the new one going to outpace the old one kind of thing?
Well, like, for example, like, does the date in which I posted this piece of content affect how a pin is going to do? If like I'm making a new pin for an old post or a new pin for a new post.
It doesn't, there's a tough to pull data on that. So here's what we know is that people have been on Pinterest for a long time, as you would say, based on your analytics. There are some things that will just reign supreme in your analytics. They're never going to die, right? And so if you create a new image, even for an old pin, that new image still does really well. It's like anything that attaches to that piece of content always performs well. When it comes to your new piece of content and your new URL, what you're trying to do is optimize for the current algorithm instead of just knowing like it's a surefire. Whenever I do anything about how to clean up Pinterest boards, I can do a new image, I can do a new video. It's going to do great every single time because it is my number one pin. Whereas something new, what I'm trying to see is, am I optimizing for the searches and the trends at the time when people are searching? So it's kind of a totally different ball game that we're playing right now.
Okay. So if I know this pin has done well for me with this blog post, keep making pins for that blog post.
Yeah, I would do a refresh probably once a year. Like go in, do a new, like I do a new image, I update that blog post, especially if it's one that's getting you email leads, right? Or if it's getting traffic, update it. Or people will say like my brand has changed. So I'm trying to get new URLs to take off because I'm not longer talking about this anymore. Try to cater that old post that does get a lot of Pinterest traffic towards the new
Okay.
And that should help a little bit. Or call to action your current readers of your email list, your current social media followers to save that pin to Pinterest. Saves are the number one metric on Pinterest. So you can definitely have them do some of the heavy lifting for you.
Ooh, this has been terrific. Okay, Kate, what do you see coming? This is hard. Coming down the pipe, both in terms of Pinterest, let's talk specifically, and then just in online business in general.
Oh, that's a big question. Okay, so after I'm done answering, I'm going to turn the what do you see back on for you. Okay, so I'll say this about Pinterest. We had Pinterest Presents. I did a whole recap podcast on it. I'll give it to you to link to your people.
Please.
I loved it. I was very inspired as to where Pinterest was going. It gave off this vibe of, let me reintroduce you to Pinterest. And this is catered towards marketers. And what they were essentially saying is, we want to do our best to have you bring your dollars here. Now, it's very ads focused, right? But there's a lot of things we can learn about where they're going to lean into in the future. So product sellers are definitely something that they are focused on because they know that Pinterest is the place where people get ideas, where they have moments around products, and they want to make that purchase time shorter than it's been before. They want to make it like, oh, you found the idea. Maybe you're going to purchase within the next couple weeks. And so there was a lot of conversation around this. I love their new C-suite team. They're all from Google, Venmo, PayPal. They have a lot of that history there with e-commerce. And they wrapped it up with their chief marketing officer saying, I know that you need results for your campaigns. And I know in the past that you have not gotten results from Pinterest. Our goal is to lean into getting results for you in the future. We want you to come here because we know, without saying it, Facebook and Instagram are not giving you results. So come here. So I appreciated that level of humility from them to say, yeah, we haven't been what you've needed small businesses in the last 2 years, but we're committed to being what you need us to be in the next 2 years. So I loved that. It actually got me pretty excited about ads. They have this new feature, Performance Plus ads, that I think is super great for the novice who just wants to try. I think if you're going to do it, you definitely need to hire someone like us for a consult to consult with setting up your campaign, your image, all those kinds of things. But I would say e-commerce is going to get even better and better over the next year on Pinterest. I think that they are committed to working with creators too. I've been very, very pleased with the people that I have met with. I feel like for the first time ever, I have a very direct line to Pinterest that feels very open, collaborative. It's just, I have been over the moon with the team of people there compared to the last 10 years where they have moved so slow, or even they've tried to chase TikTok traffic. And I love that they got rid of idea pins. I love that they said this isn't working. They are moving at a faster clip. So I really love the direction we're going in 2025. I can't speak to, my traffic is down, my views are down. My hope is that that goes up, but I also am trying to challenge myself to think differently, to think outside the box, to even challenge myself to do more ads that I know does convert to our email list, because for us, that's really important. That's what I want to challenge myself to do in 25. So business-wise, man, that's a big one. You and I are recording this a week out from the election, which of course it feels like the world has been put on hold the last couple of weeks. My hope is that small businesses would be seen more. And that we would, I don't even necessarily know 100% what I mean by that, but I guess I would hope that for most of us, we would challenge ourselves to own that identity of small business owner and own the hard work of what it takes to get in front of the right people. And I say that for me, as my community has changed, as my business models have changed. And I look at 2025, even for myself, of kind of asking that question, like, do I want to stay in this game, past 2025? Is there a need for me for Simple Pin Media to be in the game past 2025? And I think those are just big questions that I see a lot of people asking themselves who maybe rode the easy button for a while. And now they're having to really reconcile with, do I want to be here anymore? And I don't think it's bad to say you don't. I just think I hope that what comes to light is people I can either hit that fork in the road to say, yes, I want to be here. And yes, I'm going to be intentional about simplifying my business, doing less, or I'm going to choose a different path. So that's more, I would say, from a personal reflection than it is from a corporate reflection. But it's a little bit of what I see and what I hear from friends who are saying, who have been in the game as long as you and I have, and who are saying, yeah, I don't know how much longer I want to do it. And full transparency, I mean, you and I are Gen Xers. So, I mean, that's a different level of life. And I started this when I had little kids at home. And, I now have a daughter who's 19 and in Europe, and I have a senior who's going to graduate again and a freshman. I have a 9-year-old too in my home again. All that to say, I think for a lot of women, especially who started small businesses, life kind of changes for us. So obviously, I can't speak to men who are listening because theirs is a little bit different. But I'll turn that back on you. Like, what do you think business is going to do in 2025?
I think it is what you were talking about, in that it is that coming from a human, authentic place is where we are going to find our businesses and it is about being open to learning new skills. So people are freaked out. AI, it's going to take all of our jobs.
Yeah.
I'm going to say maybe it's going to invent a ton of new jobs. So therefore, I think it's about being open, being vulnerable, but not in a way where you can get really hurt, but where you're like, putting on the hat of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Putting on the place of I'm just learning and I'm going to hold on for the ride, but I'm going to be led by my audience. So where would I be leaning in right now? Email. I would be leaning into talking to people. So here's the thing. Since COVID, we've all gotten terrified to do the things that we used to do naturally, like go to a party. So I say, if you're the person who can push yourself to go to the party, to go to the meetup, to go to the conference, to say yes to coffee, it changes your whole perspective on the world. And I think that as the world feels so, strange right now, but I'm going to say, well, I don't have to buy into the fact, I'm fine in that, I'm safe and I love my life in Austin, and to remind myself of, what you were saying, getting simple, what's important to me. So I'm this lifelong learner. It totally lights up my brain. Therefore, okay, what can I learn? What new skill? AI, go learn AI so you can then teach it, so that you can then offer services. Be that person. I don't know about you, but I talk to my normie moms, friends, they know nothing about AI. They're not in this world at all. They're like, what? I've heard of it, or I tried it once and I didn't really get it. So I see there's this huge gap. How can I then maybe bring AI to the normie moms? I don't mean teach them AI, but I mean maybe I can create, a way to get them to have meal plans using AI. I don't know, but I'm seeing it as more opportunity, but I think you have to train your eyes to be open to seeing it. And I use this example, I recorded a different podcast, and I use this example, which is we needed iPhones to get Uber. Uber could never have existed without the iPhone. But when the iPhone came, nobody could have predicted Uber. And now you'd go, I can't live without Uber. How would I get to the airport?
Totally.
So it's I want to put more of that positive spin on the world and say, look for the opportunities. When everybody is zigging, you zag. You go to that party because you don't know who you're going to meet, what ideas you're going to come up with. So that would be and I think it is going to be more person to person, weirdly, in the internet with AI.
I 100% agree with you. And I actually joined a community of women who were networking together to uplift each other. And I had that idea kind of to your point, and when you said it made me think about it. Networking is the way of 2025. Networking not in this slimy way that we think, but connecting and building authentic relationships and really getting in front of other people's audiences and them getting in front of, my audience and continuing to build this up. And speaking of AI tool, I had this really aha moment a couple weeks ago when we were talking about taking the podcast and converting it into a blog post. And that's been primarily primarily hand done because you can't really take a transcription and make it sound human very easily. And so I was like, well, isn't Descript, we were talking about that before, have this thing, you just click a button and it just doesn't. Isn't AI that good? And what I learned is it's not. And it really drilled down to this thing of like the prompts that you give it, the way that you train it. And somebody said this, it's like training an employee in your company. And that is a whole level of stuff that we don't really talk about right now. Whereas if you are going to train a new employee, you don't just give them the handbook and say, hey, see you on Monday, and let them kind of like figure it out. You give them a week of training. You walk them through. And if that is how we envision these new programs being used in our business, we have to begin to think differently and training. And I think that came from a conversation that I was having with someone and that aha moment of, oh yeah, you're right. We have this mythical idea of AI and it's just going to like click and we'll be done. And then it will just go, like solve all our problems. And this is kind of a little bit of a like jump from that with AI is I've been asked a lot about AI and Pinterest images and if Pinterest will shut down AI images. And it was like, well, if you think about what Pinterest is leaning into, especially with their ads platform, their Performance Plus, is that they want AI to be able to help somebody have a background for a standalone product. And I see that and I go, that's genius because these people who are product sellers might not have the ability to pay somebody to create these amazing lifestyle photographs. And so they need AI to help facilitate them to grow their business. Why would Pinterest be opposed to that if they're allowing this to be infused into their ads platform? And obviously, AI images can be, people can take images and be distorted and all these things. There's copyright stuff. But I just think there are good tools that we can use ethically and responsibly, but embracing them as like new employees in our business.
Yeah. So I have to say, and maybe this is just like I am always looking for the positive, but I do see it. I see it around me. Yeah. And I almost feel like if you can see it or train your eye to look for where people are struggling, like that is gold.
Yeah, 100%. And the Pinterest searchers start with a pain point. They don't start by searching for a brand. They start by searching with how to, where can I, what about, like these are the things that they're looking for. And so getting in front of them on Pinterest at that point, instead of assuming they know about you, is where you soar.
Yes. Okay. So wait. So we just have to. I promise we're wrapping up. But I do though because you did bring this up. Do you think AI images work on Pinterest right now? Should people be like digging into Midjourney and like can I for my recipe do a recipe like an ingredient shot with say Midjourney? Could I do a finished product shot with Midjourney? What is your thought about this?
I think industry-wise, food is a little unique, right? Because people are going to be making the recipe and they want to have an actual of what it looks like. So that is a little bit on the line. I think when it comes to home design, there's a little bit there too that you have to fall within. I know somebody was talking about creating AI images in Canva, but I think they were really talking about creating it for more long-form content posts. So I guess I would say when it comes to food, I see, having been in that space for a long time, there's people who are really good recipe developers and there's people who are really good photographers. I also think there's people who are really good recipe developers that can hire good photographers. So food, I would have a hard time with it just because as an end user, does it look like what I want it to look like? And that's what I think you have to ask yourself is if you create an AI image and you can put that image next to your plate on the counter and you could be like, it's pretty close, then let's do it. But if you create your dish and it looks nothing like the AI image, I think at that point you have a decision to make that might be a little deceptive because somebody looks at the images when they're creating a recipe in order to benchmark, am I making this correctly? That's how I feel personally. But I don't think Pinterest has made any stance just yet. I know they're okay with AI images simply because they've integrated it into their ads platform.
And just speaking to that, I think you're so right, which is if in fact what I do is create amazing recipes, I'm being dishonest. If I think what we have is our reputation and our expertise, but I'm selling you cupcakes, and when the cupcakes turn out, they look nothing like this image. Yeah. I don't think you are doing yourself, your blog, or your audience a service. So I think there is that disconnect. If it's, say, my earrings, and I've taken a photo of my earrings, but now I can just switch out the backgrounds or put them on somebody, let's say, and it looks pretty good, I get why that might work. So I do think it's like about your own integrity.
Yeah, 100%. You have to feel good that someone on the other end sees it. Now, I think sometimes that person is probably rare. And what most people are railing against is people who are offshore sometimes who are just lighting them up like crazy. It's the same thing that we see with affiliate marketing. Is people on YouTube are saying, you can make all this money with affiliate marketing on Pinterest. All you need to do is pick a topic from Google, compare it with Pinterest trends, pull all your affiliate links, have AI write it, have AI create an image, and then slap it up. There's no personal connection in there, that even remotely in there. And I think that is probably what can happen with blog posts is you just get these things whipped up. I would say most people are pretty ethical about their images. The ones that are not, they're not really listening to you and I in this podcast to remain ethical. They really don't care.
Yes. Well, I think that is great. Okay. So, Kate, I feel like I could talk to you for another hour. And so let's do this again, like in another couple months, just to go, okay, where are we now? Because I think things are changing quicker and quicker. If people want to reach out to you, learn more about you, find out about your podcast, your agency, where should they go?
simplepinmedia.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can just search at Simple Pin Media. If you're listening on podcasts, search Simple Pin Podcast and just start listening.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I am so happy that I get to have this conversation with you. And now we're going to switch because we're doing a swap where you're going to interview me on your podcast. So if you want more of us, it'll be available. I just have to say, I am so glad I met you many years ago. And I love that we just continue this conversation.
Yes, me too. Thanks for having me.